Welcome, fantasy football nerds. You're here at the 5th down. This is episode 8, the love-hate debate, and I'm here with my host, always to my right.
K-Mill, what's up, guys?
Yeah. So we're gonna have a little love-hate debate before we jump into all that.
For episode 8, we're trying to rhyme.
Yeah. In case you guys have not heard yet, we are in the process of remodeling our website. You won't have access to it unless you have the password. I don't want to see you guys see that hot mess, so what I'm going to do is I will give you an announcement when we're up. We're going to have a draft kit up and ready. It'll look more professional. So let's jump into some news and notes.
All right.
I think the biggest news and notes, this one hits me hard because I was a big fan of his. Was Brashard Perriman partially tearing his ACL. He may need reconstructive surgery.
Yeah, that was a big surprise for me too.
How does that affect you, fantasy-wise?
He was a guy that you mentioned him a couple weeks ago, and he's kind of high on my board too. I was like, wow, I'm getting a little high on Brashard Perriman, but kind of disappointing because it's also we'll get into it later, but it's gonna bring up some sleepers that we have later in that Baltimore receiver situation.
I mean, at this point, can you label him a bust? It's back-to-back years he's been injured.
Yeah, at this point, I'm thinking him as I don't even know what to think about this guy. He's always injured.
From a fantasy aspect, though, I think you gotta like Kamar Aiken, right?
Oh yeah, love Kamar Aiken. We'll get to that a little later, though.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you guys heard about like the ASJ Twitter rants. They're pretty funny. Actually, I kind of want to read a few of them off real fast.
That was hilarious. I'm glad you brought that up today because that made my day. That was funny.
Yeah, like he got sent home from practice. Apparently, he looked like he didn't know what he was doing, so they sent him home. And I'm just gonna read some of these. Like he was like, so one of his fans on Twitter was like, "Oh my God, this guy's talking like he's done something in the league to justify his second-round pick," and he responds, "Come to $1 at 2 p.m. Monday and say something about mother, and I promise you'll be trespassing until you'll be eaten through a straw."
I think the funniest part is when his coach actually messages him. What does his coach say? His
coach is like, "You're a child. Grow up, man." I don't know if it's his actual coach. It's Coach Clark. Whoever that is.
Okay. Well, we don't know who that is, but
you're a child. Grow up, man. I'm a big fan. Well, maybe he's not his coach because he's like, I'm a big fan. You got to be way more professional than this. I agree. He's not very professional if he's doing this. He's like, he responded, "I love your mom."
Yeah. You know what was funny was every single response that ASJ had
something to do with your mom or something to do with your dad.
Yeah, it was really immature. It came off like a middle schooler. So
yeah, he's like, "I love your mom." He's like, "This is why you'll never be elite. You're a child. Doesn't surprise me since you're from UW." I'm not sure where he's from. I don't know that off the top of my head, but
yeah, it's either got to be Wisconsin or Washington.
Dissing your own fans who's trying to help you. He was.
Yeah, I mean,
he's like, "Naturally, I love your mom. Your wife loves when I shut her mouth."
Yeah,
a lot of people said the same thing about your dad with your mom.
Yeah, the whole Twitter rant came off a bit immature to me. It was like, okay, dude, you're in the NFL, you're making millions of dollars. Like, why are you acting like a fucking child? So
hit the curb, bitch.
Yeah, hit the curb, bitch.
That's what your mom too, and your mom after she had you. Like, a lot of it shit didn't even make sense.
Yeah, it's kind of sad to me too because ASJ was one of my sleepers going into the year, and now I don't even know if he's going to have his job. So
well, your mother justified me making me your daddy.
Jesus. Enough about this guy. He's a scrub.
Hang on, you can't forget about the best the best one of them all. Please come to $1 or catch me on the street, cuh.
I really want to know what $1 is. I have no idea what he's talking about.
Yeah. I mean, in lighter news, Keenan Allen re-signing with the Chargers. That's pretty good news there.
I love that situation. I love Phillip Rivers throwing the ball. I love Keenan Allen. I mean, that couldn't have been any better.
And Nelson Aguilar raped a bitch.
News coming out of Philly is he didn't rape anybody, but he allegedly sexually assaulted a stripper. So I don't know how credible any of that is. All I know is that Nelson Aguilar has given me no reason to trust him on the field, so this gives me even more reason to just stay away from him.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. All I know is I think Ruben Randall's going to beat him up for that job. I really do.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I really
and
do.
You know, that's really sad when Ruben Randall beats you out because he's been so inconsistent his entire NFL career. So I don't even know what we're going to get with that whole situation.
All right, so let's just jump right into it, yeah? Let's get into some love and hate. So we're going to start out at, do you want to start at the quarterback position? That's where we seem to have the most players to talk about here on this list.
All right, well, we'll start off with Big Ben Roethlisberger.
I mean, you don't hate him, but you're neutral on him.
Yeah.
I love him. I drafted him last year because I loved him. Yeah. He got injured a bunch of times, which is probably why you're neutral on him.
I think last year you had him in so many leagues, I felt like you were sucking his dick. But you know what? It's not that I hate Ben Roethlisberger. It's in fact the exact opposite. I love everything about Ben Roethlisberger. I'm talking the amount of receptions the receivers get, the volume that he's throwing with. I mean, this guy's insane. But the problem that I have with Ben is he showed it last year. That injury concern, it shies me away a little bit. And if you do draft Ben in this draft, you should be a little bit weary of the injury concern with him. That's my only problem with Ben. Other than that, solid all the way around.
You know, the games that he did play, I'm pretty sure he was in like the top 3 in fantasy points per game last year. So
yeah.
I mean, and when you gotta love what you get out of him there. I mean,
and if you throw the ball to Antonio Brown every game, I mean,
yeah, that doesn't hurt either.
That helps a lot.
I mean, I love him just because you can get him in like the 6th round, and like I think that's a good value for a top tier quarterback in my opinion. And like, if he does get injured, you got to make sure that I feel like like a late round quarterback that you could get that could alleviate that a little bit is like someone like Eli Manning or Derek Carr.
I can't disagree with the value about that 6th round pick that you're talking about. But the only problem with me is that, you know, if he gets that season ending injury, then you just potentially wasted a 6th round pick.
He got injured twice last year.
Yeah.
He came back from one of the injuries probably like a month before he was supposed to. He's a guy that will play through injuries. So that's another thing you gotta love, and he plays well through injury as well.
And the other thing too is I was looking at him last year in one game, or no, it was before Monday Night Football, I think, one game. And they showed a picture of him, and he was throwing in practice gear, and I was like, the first reaction I had was, damn, Ben Roethlisberger looks fat. And I kind of, you know, he doesn't keep himself in shape. Man, that guy can throw a ball 100 yards, but he can't, you know, he doesn't care about his body. He can't run. He's kind of fragile now. So
there's been reports that he has been trying to lose some weight for this offseason to avoid injury. So we'll see.
I hope so. I think that was part of the reason why the injuries had him out for so long last year. It was because he was out of shape. So.
I mean, let's see. We both love A-Rod. We both love Luck. Next one that we didn't have a complete disagreement about this guy. Like, I don't hate Rivers. I don't hate him. I just don't love him. You love Philip Rivers. Please tell me. Please try to convince me to love him.
All right. Well, let's start off with Philip Rivers here. So Philip Rivers is a guy. He ended last year, as far as yards go, he finished second. The only one that finished ahead of him was Drew Brees. He threw for 4,792 yards last year, and he had 437 completions. I mean, this guy, if he's got a healthy Keenan Allen in his corner, that helps his stock obviously a lot.
I can go with that. I mean, that is one appealing thing about him is he does have actually a lot of guys that can catch the ball over there. He does have Keenan Allen. He has Stevie Johnson. They picked up Travis Benjamin. They have Antonio Gates. They got Woodhead can catch out of the backfield. Melvin Gordon can catch out of the backfield. So
exactly.
He does have a lot of people you can target over there. The only reason why I kind of don't have him in that love area is I don't know what. Maybe I just always associate him with like falling off the edge towards the second half of the season. I don't know if that had a lot to do with the fact that they went 3-13 last year or some shit like that.
Yeah. I think they'll do a lot better this year, much improved. But you know what? He's a good bet in my eyes. I'm sorry, that's an ESPN update. I'm sorry for that. Anyways, no, he's a guy that you look at it. I mean, he was top 10 in the league last year in completion percentage. He completed 66.1% of his passes, and you know, frankly, if you're getting close to 70% of your passes, I mean, that's good. That's great. Yeah, and he, you know what? It's gonna depend on his receivers. But I feel like Philip Rivers is going to have a great season next year. He's going to be a guy that you can probably get in those mid rounds. It's going to be great value for him. That's why I love Phillip Rivers. And he proved he was durable last year. He didn't miss any games as far as injury goes. I think the only thing that really held him back was his receivers getting injured. But, I mean, that production as far as the quarterback position goes, I mean, it's really hard to beat that.
I mean,
all I'm saying on him, and I'm just going to finish this off here with Phillip Rivers, but, I mean, when you have a healthy Keenan Allen, and last year at the back end, you can see why he would struggle. He had Dontrell Inman and I forget the other one. Stevie Johnson. I mean, those were his top two receivers, and neither one of them did really anything towards the end of last year.
I liked Stevie Johnson up until about week 3.
Yeah.
Like he was all right.
You know, he was a hot waiver wire pickup for me, and he ended up doing nothing. So
I actually had high expectations for Stevie, man. I drafted him late.
Yeah.
I drafted him kind of late.
I know you did, and then you dropped him, and then I picked him right up.
No, I did not drop him. I traded him.
Oh,
for
that's
Kendall.
right.
I traded him for Kendall Wright, and that was terrible. That was a disaster.
Yeah, neither one of those really filled up their potential, but I was thinking about the work league there.
Yeah, I gotta get some more Honey Jack.
Honey Jack. What's in your cup? All right, so moving right along, let's go ahead and jump into another guy we disagree about.
Well, we're not too far off bases with him, but Andy Dalton is a guy that you love. I am once again neutral on. The only reason why I'm neutral is because of where you can get him. I really don't have a lot of reason to love Andy Dalton. The reason being is, like, they lost like all their receivers pretty much besides AJ, and I just feel like that's not the Andy Dalton we've seen last year is really not normally the Andy Dalton that I'm used to seeing. I think he's going to come back down to reality. But
you think so?
You go ahead and try to make me love him.
All right. Well, Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle. And, you know, he kind of pissed me off with his comments about that, and J.J. Watt pissed him off. I was just like, it's a little trash, trash.
So juvenile.
Yeah, it's a little trash talk back and forth. I mean, I don't understand why that was unprofessional. Anyways, he completed 66.1% of his passes for 3,250 yards, 8.4 yards per reception on average for his receivers. I mean... And where did I get him in the mock draft the other day? I think I got him in round 5.
You got him around 8. You could have got him a lot later than that.
I could have, yeah, but I liked him. He's a guy I'm also really high on going into next year. I think Andy Dalton will have a good season, albeit any injuries or anything like that. But, I mean, this is a guy that's going to get you QB1 production all season, barring any injury.
You think he's going to finish as a QB1?
I think so. I think he has the potential next year to finish in the top 10.
I've had Andy Dalton. This is how I viewed him for probably the last 3 years. He to me is like a high end QB2 for me. He's like that. He's like the best backup quarterback that I could get. I love getting him as my backup quarterback in that 11-12 round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's solid. And you know where he was going. I've seen guys like Tony Romo go that soon too, and I have no idea why somebody would take a Tony Romo as soon. Like, if you have the choice between Tony Romo and Andy Dalton, why would you take Tony Romo? I don't understand.
I mean, I've been doing a lot of mock drafts, and when I've been waiting on those quarterbacks, those are the 3 quarterbacks I've been seeing real late that are all drafted right around each other is Tony Romo, Andy Dalton, and Derek Carr. Yeah.
Out of all 3 of those, I think I like Derek Carr the best. We'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, we both love Derek Carr, so there's no hiding it. Let's go into our next quarterback, which we're closer on this one than we were on Dalton. Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor. I like him a lot. If you're looking for volume, you probably won't get it because he uses his legs too.
That's the reason why I have him as a neutral.
I love him simply for the fact of, on average in fantasy, and can you actually check his average draft position for me, because I don't remember where it is off the top of my head.
I'm sure it's pretty late.
Yeah. I mean, I think the value for him is great because last year he did finish as a QB1, didn't he? Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, he did not.
Oh, he finished QB2? Okay.
Yeah. No, but according to Fantasy Football Calculator, his average draft position is 12th round, second pick.
Yeah, see, and for that value alone, and he has the potential in my mind to finish, and simply because, not because of the receptions or the passing yards or anything like that. He threw for 3,000 yards last year, but he also... I don't know what he got rushing right off the top of my head.
He does run the ball. He got 600 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, let me see. I'm reviewing it.
I think his rushing totals are very doable again next year. That's one upside for him. He's actually a very efficient quarterback, stats-wise.
Yeah, average yards per game, he got 216 yards per game on average. So,
was that just passing? That's not including the rushing?
I think that's including rushing as well. You'd have to fact check me here, but it says yards per game. So yeah, I'm gonna assume that's the average. He's not a guy that's gonna throw for 300 yards a game. He's a guy that'll probably get like 50 yards with his legs, possibly add a touchdown with his legs, and so he's always got that upside too. You know, he could possibly score you a touchdown with his legs in a game.
Yeah, I guess I'm a guy that I don't really tend to lean towards like the rushing quarterbacks very much in fantasy. Like I like you to be able to get your points with your arm. That way I don't have to worry about you getting like those 40, 50 yards rushing, which if you do get that, that's good. Like, if you can get 200 yards passing and 50 yards rushing, I'll take that every game.
Oh yeah, I would too. Yeah, and I tend to lean away from that too, but Tyrod Taylor, for his value and where he is and the fact that he was durable all season last year, it makes me feel like he is worth that value. He is a guy that I love going into next year, especially for where you can get him. If you're looking for a quarterback that you can rely on all season, he's a guy that I think you can get him in the late rounds for some great value.
All right. Anything else that you want to add in with Tyrod Taylor before we move on?
No, I think I got it all across.
All right, this next guy we got is the first quarterback that we are completely separate on. Like you said you love Cousins. I hate him.
Yeah, all right. Well, you start off, tell me why you hate him, and I will try to convince you why you should love him.
All right, the reason why I feel like you should hate Cousins is because his numbers from last year, he finished as a QB1, but his numbers are inflated because, believe it or not, this guy had 5 rushing touchdowns last year, and I didn't know this until I actually looked it up. He had 5 rushing touchdowns. I don't see him repeating that at all. Like that's an extra 25 points that's going to be taken away just right there off the bat. I think he's going to get 1 or 2. You might get like 1 or 2 rushes.
I don't see 5, but I see maybe 1 or 2, 3, maybe. You know, so I don't see it being too far of an outlier.
And he was awful on the road. He was one of the worst road quarterbacks in the league. He really only did good against bad defenses at home. Like his splits from at home and on the road are completely different. I just feel like he didn't really do that good against elite talent. So
would you say that he was he benefited from having a weak schedule? Would you say that's the case?
Yes. I mean, he kind of gets that pass because he plays in the NFC East, so that's one good thing working in his favor. Mm-hmm. And they did add Doxson, which I really like. But there's question marks behind, can Deshaun Jackson stay healthy? Can Jordan Reed stay healthy? Can they get a running game going? Like a lot of question marks, in my opinion. I mean, I know a lot of people are excited about their offense. Me, just not so much.
I'm really excited about this Redskin offense, and I'll just jump right in it. Okay, so the reason why I love Kirk Cousins, and before I explain it, I want to put a disclaimer out there. He could possibly be a bust. I will mention that right now because his success is going to depend heavily on his supporting cast. Can his supporting cast stay healthy? Because Jordan Reed, you really can't replace a Jordan Reed. The touchdown upside, the yards per game, I mean, Jordan Reed is going to be a huge factor in this. And same with Deshaun Jackson because he's just a speedster, you know, he's the deep threat. So Kirk Cousins, he completed nearly 70% of his passes last year on the season. In fact, he finished as far as yards as the number 10 quarterback on this list, threw for 200 yards, almost 200 yards, over 4,000. So he hit that 4,000. He was averaging 7.7 yards per catch. Per toss, and he was averaging about 260 yards a game passing. So, you know, this is a guy where I'm looking at him, and as long as his supporting cast stays healthy, you brought up some good points. Can Deshaun Jackson stay healthy for an entire year? We don't know. That's a huge question. In fact, that's probably the biggest one because I don't even know if Deshaun Jackson can stay healthy all year. Same with Jordan Reed. If these guys can stay healthy all season, though, I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a force to be reckoned with next year.
Okay, so where do you think that he's getting drafted?
I actually haven't looked at it in a while. Can you bring up his average draft position?
It's actually 10th round, the back end of the 10th round right now.
See, actually, you know what? if he's going to put up the numbers I expect him to next year, I actually don't mind spending 10.
He's going behind guys like Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Tony Romo, and Andy Dalton.
You know what? Next year, just as far as upside goes, I think I'd rather have him than any one of those guys, as far as upside goes. But the thing is, you gotta take a precautionary measure if you draft Kirk Cousins, because you don't know, is the supporting cast going to stay healthy? Is there's a whole bunch of different factors with him. But I think if everybody stays healthy, he's going to have a fucking awesome season next year. In fact, I know last year was a breakout season. I think he can even surpass what he did last year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a hot take. Our next guy we're going to talk on this list is another one that you love that I don't really love so much, is Jameis Winston.
Jameis Winston. All right, we'll talk.
Go ahead. I want you to tell me why you love him.
All right. Well, Jameis Winston is kind of an enigma to me. And here are 3 reasons why I think that he's going to be even better next year than he was this year. Okay? He was a rookie last year. He already put up pretty inflated numbers. I like those numbers. The other reason is Mike Evans had a bad season last year. You got to look at VJax. VJax over the hill. He's probably only going to be on the team for next season, and that's it.
Do you think he's going to be a serviceable number 2 next year?
If he can stay healthy. I don't even see it. I think for the first 3 games will be a serviceable number 2.
So that's why I was really hoping that they were going to get someone that could be that number 2 guy.
I will admit that's a little concerning. They didn't draft anybody right there, but I will say that Evans, he will have another. Last year he struggled. I think this year he's going to be even better, which is also going to inflate Jameis's numbers. But he's a guy that's. Where did he finish last year as far as? I
think it was he was inside the top 15, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, see, that's awesome. And I know one of the big reasons why I will tell you what hurts him is the fact that ASJ I thought was going to have a breakout campaign this year. Obviously, that's a little in question now from his little Twitter rant and talking about Yo Mama and shit. But, I can't tell you why I love him so much. He finished, as far as yards goes, as the number 11 quarterback last year. He just got over 4,000 yards, and that's only his rookie campaign. I think he can improve on that next year, and I think as long as Mike Evans doesn't show further regression and actually hits his talent level, I think that it's just going to go up from there.
See, here's the issues I have with. I'm going to start bringing up some points of why I don't like Winston.
Okay.
Well, one, he only completed 58% of his passes last year.
Yeah, that is a concerning point.
He had 22 passing touchdowns but he also threw 15 interceptions. So I don't really care for that ratio too much. His average yards per attempt, 7.1.
Hey, man, rookie mistakes.
He didn't really get sacked a whole lot. He only got sacked 27 times but I think his reason why he was so high in the top 15 last year is, once again, inflated rushing stats. Is he going to get 6 rushing touchdowns?
Yeah. Well, see, I can write the interceptions off as rookie mistakes. I mean, if they continue next year, then obviously it'll be. He showed it to me. He showed it in college too, man. He's getting picked off a lot in college his senior year. I think he threw 16 interceptions in college. I think that's just who he is. I'm not a big fan of his. He really only has one legit receiver, in my opinion, because, like you said, Vincent Jackson's getting over the edge. ASJ's either always hurt or talking on Twitter, apparently. And they also have they have one of the worst passing schedules going into next year, but they have one of the best rushing schedules. So that's another thing that I take into account. Although you don't really want to look into strict schedule too much because a lot of things can change over the course of an off season. So. Yeah. Right. Very good points. All
right, the last quarterback we're going to talk about is a guy that I actually have hopes of a rebound season is Matt Ryan. Obviously, you don't like him. I do like him because of where you can get him is actually really good value. You can get him at the middle of 11th round. That's not too bad. I actually been seeing him go a lot later in my mock drafts. I haven't really drafted him too much, but if I really had to draft him as my second quarterback, I'd have no issue with that. Like, even if I had to pair, like, say, like a Big Ben with a Matt Ryan, like, I'd be okay with that.
I think it's what you did last year in one league.
Yeah, well, it was against my own choice. Like, Matt Ryan sucked ass last year. I had to make a trade.
Well, I'll tell you what you can expect from Matt Ryan and why I think he's a little too high on a lot of people's radars. So, number one reason, he had 21 touchdowns and 16 interceptions last year. I don't like that ratio at all. For the same reason that you don't like Jameis, it's the same reason why I don't like Matt Ryan.
I think that was probably. I mean, I'm not sure what his whole career stats is looking like that, but I'm pretty sure that quite possibly could be a career low for touchdown passes, if I'm not wrong, right?
I think last year, I don't have last year's stats pulled up, but I do think that this has been kind of a trend for him in the last 3 years. He's been throwing a little more picks. Not enough to throw up a red flag and be like, this guy's bust. But I mean, so here's what you can expect from Matt Ryan. You can expect probably over 20 touchdowns he's going to throw. The interceptions scare me a little bit. You can also expect him to throw over 4,000. I mean, last year he had over 4,500 yards. He was averaging 7.2 yards per reception. I mean, this is a guy I just kind of want to stay away from. I mean, he'll complete a high percentage of his passes. He was completing 66% of his passes.
I mean, like I said, I wouldn't really trust him as my only my starting quarterback, but I wouldn't mind having him as my second quarterback. I think that if they can improve a little bit in the red zone, like throw the fucking ball to Julio Jones in the red zone, then I think not only would the whole team be better, but Matt Ryan's stats would look a lot better as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I do like about Matt Ryan is he threw for a lot of yards last year. He continually does that. But the thing that really is a red flag for me is the last couple years he's throwing a little too many interceptions for my liking, and that's just kind of like, your quarterback working against you. You want a guy that's going to throw you like pretty much double the touchdowns to interceptions ratio. But that's all I got on him. Anybody else we got to discuss as far as quarterbacks?
Do you think there's anybody else that's should be worth mentioning?
No, because I think we're pretty much in agreement over the other ones.
So, have you guys heard that the Fifth Down, we are now part of the UNB network? All of our shows get posted on there. They're a really good online news source. They cover pretty much every sport you could think of. Come check out their page at unbtechnetwork.wix.com/fantasy is where you can find us, and we are the place to be. All right, so let's get into some running backs. Some of them we have a slight disagreement about. Some of them we're far apart on.
Okay.
So let's jump into the first one that we have. This is a guy that's probably in the top 10 in most people's list, Lamar Miller. I love him. You are neutral on him. Tell me the reasons why you're neutral on Lamar Miller.
Okay, well, let's break right into it.
First off, tell me the things that you dislike about him.
Okay, the things I dislike about Lamar Miller. Last year, and granted, I know I'm probably going to get some grief for this one. I know he was in Miami. I know the system did not benefit him, but as a fantasy player last year, he was inconsistent. He was on a fucking tear for a while last year. I mean, he was on. That's why
I once traded for him.
Yeah, you traded me for him, and then once you traded,
he did nothing.
But it was good for me because during his entire tear, he was on my team. The problem was that after that, just completely nothing, like no signs of life whatsoever. So my thing about Lamar Miller, he didn't eclipse 1,000 yards last year. Granted, I think he would have if the system would have benefited him, but Miami wasn't really doing him any favors.
How many carries a game did he get?
He was getting 12 carries a game, just a bit over on average. He was on the season, he got 194 carries, so obviously the production is there. The only concerns I have about Lamar Miller, he's a neutral for me just because he's going to a new system in Houston. We don't know if they're going to let Brock Osweiler run out of the shotgun, running the offense out from under center. who knows at this point? So that's the only question mark I have on him. Honestly, though, where he's going is where he should go in the fantasy draft. He's just a guy that maybe if I can get some other guys, I'm kind of shying away from him. But he's a solid pickup.
Is it a guy that you would want in the second round?
I would say so, yeah. Depending on who my first round pick is, I would want him in the second round.
All right, well, here's some reasons why I love Lamar Miller this year. 1, location. He's going to Houston. They love to use that running back. Yeah, granted, last year they used the committee because of Arian Foster, but listen to some of this usage that Arian Foster got when he was in Houston. In 2010, he had 327 carries for 1,616 yards, 16 touchdowns. 2011, 278 carries for 1,200 yards, 10 touchdowns. 2012, 351 carries for 1,424 yards, 15 touchdowns. I feel like he could be used like that in Houston. They have a zone blocking scheme, which I think actually benefits his running style a little bit because he doesn't really have the greatest. I mean, granted, he doesn't really have the greatest field of vision, but I think that he's going to get a lot of usage, especially in the catching area. He got 47 catches last year.
Yeah,
I feel like he can be the 3-down back, and he finally gets the opportunity in Houston. They really don't have any of was Alfred Blue going to cut into his time? Let's be serious here. And he was the number 5 running back last year, and he had less than 200 carries. Can you imagine if he had 300 carries? He'd probably been the number 1.
Nah, that would have been crazy. But, he was only averaging 54 yards per game.
That's because he was only getting 12 carries a game.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
His average is great.
Yeah, it's going to depend on volume. Like I said, I got so many questions about that Houston team. Are they going to let Brock do a pass burst offense? Is he going to run out of the shotgun? Is he going to run out from under center? My gut is he's going to run out from under center. But here's my thing. I don't know if they're going to be a pass first or a run first team. My gut tells me they're going to be a run first, but the problem is that I don't know at this point. So that's why he's a neutral for me.
I think they're a pretty balanced offense, actually. I think they will have a little bit of a run-oriented offense at first, but they're going to still throw the ball.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, you do bring up a lot of good points, but for me, I'm kind of a show-me guy, so prove it to me.
Yeah, you want to see that you can actually handle all those touches.
I know how he runs in the Miami offense. I want to see what he does in the Houston offense.
All right, man, I could dig that.
Okay.
Our next disagreement about this is Doug Martin. I know that in your previous article, the early off-season sleepers and busts, you actually have Doug Martin pegged as a bust.
Well, and that was literally potentials. That was obviously way too early. I've kind of...
It was like a month ago.
Yeah. No, that was 2 months ago.
Yeah, April.
Yeah, April. Well, I have kind of broadened my horizons on the little Doug Martin. I'm still saying that he could be a bust next year. But I am...
Why is that?
Why is that? Well, let me start out with why I think that he could be successful next year. I think he could be... I'm neutral on Doug Martin, so don't get me wrong. I'm not a dislike guy on him anymore. I was, but I've actually kind of warmed up to him a little bit. So the reason I think that he could be a good running back next year, he was the number 2 running back in all of football last year. The only one that he finished behind was Adrian Peterson as far as yards go. He was averaging 18 carries a game. I mean, the volume is for sure there. There's only a couple things that really concern me on why he isn't going to be the guy that you think he's going to be next year, and that's injuries. Number 1, he's struggled with injuries his whole career except for his rookie season, and even then he had a little bit of a concern there. He also only had 6 touchdowns last year. Now, when I'm looking at a running back, I look at guys that are behind him like Chris Sims. He obviously cuts into that touchdown load a little bit, so you can only really. If I'm looking at expectations here, I'm only expecting Doug Martin. I'm expecting him to finish under 10 touchdowns. I don't think he'll get 10.
Well, you got to think that they don't really play on that potent of an offense, so it's kind of hard to imagine him getting 10 rushing touchdowns.
And the other reason too is I think that the Tampa Bay is just going to build on their success with the passing game last year. I think that Jameis Winston is going to continue to grow as a quarterback. Don't quote me on that because obviously that's very, very, very far from being set in stone. But I do feel like that Jameis Winston is going to take a huge step in the passing game next year, and Doug Martin might be a little bit of an afterthought. But like I said, I'm not dissing him. I think he's a great running back. I think that he will finish in, for sure in the top 15. But
do you think he's going to be an RB1? I
think he will be. I think he'll finish right on the fringes of an RB1, but I think he will be. I just what my whole point with Doug Martin is, and he just, for me, I think that if you're expecting what he did last year, you're not going to get that.
Well, I love the entire Tampa Bay backfield. I love Martin, and I loved Sims. I love Martin on the fact that he was nearly averaging 5 yards a carry last year. And that's with a rookie quarterback that you said that it's only going to get better, so it might open it up a little bit. But also, Tampa Bay has a rough passing schedule next year, but they have an easy running schedule, so I think that also benefits Doug Martin as well. If he stays healthy, he's a candidate that could get 300 carries next year. He got 288 last year, just over 1,400 yards. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to hit 10 touchdowns. I think he's more in that 6 to 8 range because they don't really have that potent of an offense. But he also is a guy that in the past has shown that he can catch the ball as well. But I think that a lot of that goes away because of Charles Sims, which is another guy that I really love. I think he's going to finish as an RB3.
Yeah,
he's going to be a good flex play. If Doug Martin does have an injury pass, so if he was to go down, Charles Sims, I think, would be instantly an RB2 at least, maybe even an RB1.
Yeah, no, if that's another disclaimer, too. If you draft Doug Martin in your league this year, make sure that you draft Chris Sims.
Charles Sims.
My bad. Charles Sims. Sorry, yeah. I'm thinking of the fucking scrub quarterback.
I really think that he's going to do just fine next year. I think that they might actually lean towards him because it might be kind of hard to throw the ball against their schedule this year.
Yeah.
And it might also lead to a lot of dump-offs for Charles.
All good points. Now that I've thought about it a little bit and some events have happened, like ASJ not really being in the fold too much this year, I do think, though, I don't think he'll necessarily be a bust, but if you're expecting last season's production, I think you'll be a little bit disappointed. That's my big point.
Is he worth your second-round draft pick?
I would say depending on your first round, yes. Depending on what you're going for, I would say he's worth second-round value.
Say you get, like a David Johnson in the first round. Would you target Doug Martin?
Well, I'll tell you, man, the biggest thing is injuries scare me on him. So that's the big thing for me is injuries. I'm a big guy where if you get a guy that's injury prone and you draft him with the expectation for him to stay healthy all season.
I mean, actually, he's going like third round. According to fantasy football calculator, he's going like middle of the third round.
Well, we'll see if I can get him in the third round. That's even better.
That's even better. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'd love that value for him if you get him in the third round. But my thing is that if you get a guy that's injury prone and you're expecting him to stay healthy all season, you're potentially wasting a pick if you get a guy that gets injured. And injuries happen, we all know that, but the thing is, what you can control in your draft is to not draft guys that are injury prone. And that's the only thing that really scares me with him. But if I can get Doug Martin in the third round, I'm taking him all day.
All right, so we'll go on to the next guy. This is a guy that our opinions differ quite a bit. TJ Yeldon, I have him as a love, you have him as a hate. I'm going to explain why I love him this year.
All right, kick it off.
Well, the number one reason why I love TJ Yeldon is purely based on where you can get him in the draft. He's going later in like the 8th, 9th round. I gotta love that value because especially Chris Ivory's not he doesn't have like a bountiful amount of health. Like, he does tend to get injured, and if he goes out, TJ Yeldon, to me, is instantly a RB2, another guy that could potentially be an RB1 if he got every down rolls, which he doesn't, but if he did. Chris Ivory does tend to get injured. You got the value for TJ there if that happens. He also can catch the ball. I think he could be, I've said this on a show before, he could potentially be a Gio Bernard in that offense.
Yeah, I think you said that last show.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll kick it off to why I hate him, and it's not necessarily that I hate TJ Yeldon, it's the fact that I hate the entire Jacksonville backfield. I mean, think about it. It's a mess. You got oft injured and never really lived quite up to his potential. Chris Ivory. You got a guy, TJ Yeldon, who I really, when I look at okay, so you look at it this way. In the offseason, they went ahead and got Chris Ivory. Is that really a message that, maybe they don't have faith in TJ Yeldon, like the organization? Because if you think this guy is the guy of the future and he's going to build on his rookie success, why the hell do you go out and get a guy like Chris Ivory? It worries me a little bit. And
you don't think he's the guy that can handle the carries between the tackles?
Well, it's a point I'm bringing up. Why the hell would they go out and get Chris Ivory, who's injury prone anyways? It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, that pickup to me didn't make it. I did not expect Ivory to go to Jacksonville.
That was the lead. That was probably one of the teams that was lowest on my radar for Chris Ivory to land. In fact, I thought he might re-sign with New York. But anyways, Chris Ivory, you do bring up a good point though, and I will bring that up. Chris Ivory, a guy that's off injured, didn't get a whole lot of touchdowns last year. He only got 7 last year, and when he was healthy, he was doing great. He got over 1,000 yards last year, but. And Toby Gerhardt, don't even get me started about him.
I don't really think we need to mention him. I don't think he's really much of a factor in this backfield.
You know what? I'm kind of sad that I did, but just everybody stay away from him. He's not relevant at all.
Well, I don't think he ever was.
No, he's never
I think
been.
he was that, like, maybe 2013, 2014 when he first got to Jacksonville, but...
Yeah, no. Okay, so...
He does not mention him.
So getting back into it, yeah. So TJ Yeldon, it's not that I think that he's going to be good. I mean, this guy, if you're looking at, you're the Jacksonville organization, you drafted him for a reason. He finished with 740 yards last season. He averaged 15 carries a game. I mean, if you're really trying to...
What was his yards per carry?
Yards per carry. He was averaging over 4 yards a carry. So my point is that if you draft this guy and he's like, oh, he's our running back of the future, why do you go out and get a guy like Chris Ivory? It doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they would do it. It's a completely head-scratching move to me. So that's kind of why I want to stay away from this whole Jacksonville backfield.
You're just not happy with the whole situation?
I'm not. But you do bring up a good point, though, that he if you can get him in a late round, and you didn't necessarily draft Chris Ivory, but you drafted him. I already mentioned it that Chris Ivory's injured a lot. You grab a guy like TJ Yeldon in a mid-round or a later round. I mean, bam, you got Jacksonville's entire backfield.
I mean, especially say you're a guy, you're going into your draft and you're drafting a bunch of guys that are like receivers and tight ends and quarterbacks. You're going to the zero running back strategy. Why wouldn't that be a target later in the draft?
Yeah.
A guy that could potentially take over the entire backfield.
Yeah. Now, what's funny, though, is that we disagree on the Jacksonville backfield, I guess, but what we can agree on is that if you can grab TJ Yeldon in the mid or later round, you should take him.
I'm loving him in the 8th or 9th round.
And I absolutely agree with you on that one. So if you can get him in the 8th or 9th round, take him.
All right. Our next one is... David Johnson. Wow. I know you're a big lover of David Johnson. I don't hate him. I'm just not as big of a lover as him. I'm more neutral towards him. Yeah. My expectations are a little bit more tempered. I just feel like he didn't. What's his yards per carry last year? I know it was under 4. It wasn't very high. I know he does possess the ability to catch out of the backfield, but. None of this seems similar to the C.J. Anderson of last year.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? When you say last year, you mean 2 years ago, right?
No, I'm talking about C.J. Anderson last year. You don't think he could potentially just be a guy that everyone's expecting to do so good, and then he just falls flat on his face and just doesn't meet expectations.
I don't see that with him. He was a guy at the end of last season that was really durable. He actually he averaged 4.6 yards per carry last year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a lot higher than I thought. For some reason, I thought it was a lot lower.
And think about it. He got 581 rushing yards, and he took over after midseason. I think it was week
10, 11.
Yeah, it was week 10 or 11, and he got 580 yards in that little of a time span. I mean, that's insane to me.
See, the reason I'm neutral is that he's a guy that easily see being an RB1. I could easily be wrong about him, but he could just as easily be like an RB3 to me.
Yeah, and you know what the other thing is, the real reason why I love David Johnson is the fact that he was only out of the backfield, handoff wise, he was only getting 7 on average a game.
You know, I was also hearing. Well, he didn't start most of the year either.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah.
That's why he didn't have as many carries per game.
Right, exactly, and that's what I'm saying. But and the other thing too is he's a great receiver out of the backfield. You know, when I'm looking at him, I'm looking at Matt Forte like 4 years ago.
You think he's gonna be like a Matt Forte?
I think he can be better than a Matt Forte.
Ooh, better than you think he'll be better than any year that Matt Forte did?
I think he could definitely surpass it.
Because Matt Forte actually I think he was like a top 3 running back his rookie year. He's never been. Matt Forte has never in a standard or in a PPR league. He has never finished outside the top 12.
Yeah, I think that
even last year he was in the top 12.
I know. I know, and that's why I bring this up. I think David Johnson can potentially be better than Matt Forte was. You know what? I expect great things from this kid. He was a rookie last season, and if that's any indication, he's going to have a great career because he proved also, and I know he only played a little less than half a season last year, but he proved to be durable down the stretch, and he proved to be that rock that Carson Palmer could rely on the rest of the season.
According to Mike Jarecki of Fox Sports 910 Phoenix, expects that David Johnson could handle over 60% of the carries next year. So that means maybe Chris Johnson might have a little bit of value. You don't think that he can cut into his carries a little bit? Because I think Chris Johnson was once like a top 5 in yards last year.
No, he was. Yeah. Actually, while we're talking about, let's bring Chris Johnson up for a second because I just looked at him. So Chris Johnson actually had a pretty respectable season by himself last year. He was also averaging over 4 yards a carry. He was getting an average in his heyday before he got injured. He was averaging 17 carries a game.
I think he had one game where he had 30 carries.
Yeah, I think he did, and he also on the season had 800. And like we were just talking about, he only played for half the season, a little over half the season.
But my thing is, you're not worried about Chris Johnson cutting in his time at all.
No,
he already showed he could do it.
No, yeah, I think that next year, especially now that he's not a rookie, I think that's it's David Johnson's team, unless something else happens, unless an injury happens. I think though that we were bringing up, make sure you have his handcuff. Make sure if you draft David Johnson, you're taking Chris Johnson later.
So, I see you as a guy that's going to draft David Johnson in the first round. Are you drafting drafting Chris Johnson as well then?
I have to, yeah.
Like you could probably get him later in the draft.
I think so too. I think I can get him. Check his draft position because I think you could probably get him in the 10th round.
Are you talking Chris Johnson?
Yeah, Chris Johnson.
Oh, you could probably get him later than that.
Yeah,
you could probably get him late. 13.1 or 13.01 is what Fantasy Football calculator.
See, I probably take him in the 11th or the 12th.
All right. So we'll get into the next guy that we have a slight disagreement about. It's not really that big of a disagreement though. Mark Ingram. You love him. I'm neutral on him. Really, the only reason why I'm really neutral on him, it's not about his talent at all. He's a talented running back. He kind of reminds me of he's just kind of inconsistently used, like Lamar Miller was in Miami. He does get some of the catches, but I think that they might try to take some of the load off him next year because he does have injury concerns. That's another thing that bothers me. He never seems to stay healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think at one point in the year he was a top 10 or 5 running back when he was in. But then some Hightower came in and really lifted a lot of people into those playoffs.
Yeah. Hightower was one of those guys I really wasn't expecting. I thought he was just dead and buried, and then he came back from the dead.
I took a chance on him.
Yeah.
But Ingram's not a guy that I really hate. I kind of like where he's going in the drafts. He's going at a good value. But let's see, according to the Fantasy Football Calculator, Mark Ingram is going in the beginning of the 3rd round. I've seen him go a lot later than that. I've seen him go in the 5th round before.
Yeah, if I can get him in the 5th round, I'm taking him all day.
Yeah.
That's an easy decision. But I'll tell you why I love him. The volume's there. Last year he was averaging almost 14 carries a game. Before he got injured, and you'd have to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was week 12.
It was towards the end of the season.
It was towards the end of the season, but he was well on his way to over a 1,000-yard season. He was at 789 yards in the season before he got hurt. He was averaging nearly 5 yards per carry. I mean, what's not to love there? The volume's there, and I think he'll be utilized the exact same next year. Like we were just saying, the value, I love that value. If you can get him in the 5th round, I will say though, I wouldn't take him in the 3rd. There's a lot of guys I have higher than him in the 3rd, but if you can get him in the 5th, oh man, all day, give me that all day. But that's the main reason why I love Mark Ingram is just because of his value.
All right. So we have another guy that we have a disagreement about. I have him pegged as a love. You have him, what, neutral?
Wait for Jamaal Charles?
Jamaal Charles.
I hate him.
You hate him.
I hate him.
I don't really love him. I'm neutral on him. That's what it was. I mean, I'm kind of leaning towards love, but I'm kind of neutral because I am a little bit concerned about his injury history. But here's what Jamaal Charles, what he represents to me, is a top 5 talent if he plays the full season. He's going to be a top 5 running back. That's what he represents to me. What are some reasons why you don't like him? I mean, obviously he's injury prone. What's some other reasons besides being injured?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. That's the entire reason why I hate him. Because, look, okay, bring up to me when the last time he played a full season. It was
probably like 2013, 2014.
Yeah, that's my point. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I could be wrong about that. I'm just going off the top of the dome.
Essentially, and you'll have to check me on the ADP on this guy, but I think he's averaging like a 2nd round pick.
Yes, see, right now, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, he is averaging 2nd round, 3rd pick, beginning of the 3rd or 2nd round.
See, and I hate that for him because essentially there's so many guys in the 2nd round where I'd rather have them than Jamaal Charles because if you get Jamaal Charles and he gets injured again, you just wasted a 2nd round pick. And you know what? You got guys like Spencer Ware that's going to cut into his red zone carries, and you got a guy like Karchandrick West who, could be a change of pace back. I don't like that whole Kansas City situation.
I'm going to give you a little scenario.
Okay.
Say you're picking like 11th or 12th overall.
Mm-hmm.
Adrian Peterson's off the board. And say you get, like, I don't know, like a A.J. Green or like a Allen Robinson in that back end of the 1st, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather just get another receiver, or would you worry about running backs coming off the board and draft Jamaal Charles right there at the beginning of the 2nd round?
I'd rather have a receiver than Jamaal Charles. I feel like I'd be better off. I'm not wasting a pick.
All right, well, let's play some more games, right?
Okay, all right. Let's play some games. I got more names than
I'm going to pull up the ADP for wide receivers, right? This is according to Fantasy Football Calculator, in case you guys haven't figured that out yet. All right, here's some receivers in the 2nd round. I'm going to name off every receiver that has an average draft pick in the 2nd round, and I want you to tell me whether you'd pick that receiver or Jamaal Charles.
Okay.
At average pick of 2.01, first pick of the 2nd round, Jordy Nelson.
Absolutely rather have him than Jamaal Charles.
Keenan Allen, 12. He's mid 2nd round.
Oh, you don't even have to ask that question. You already know. I love Keenan Allen.
Alshon Jeffrey.
That's a tough one because I'm not exactly. We'll get into him.
He's not a bountiful health either.
Yeah, he's not a bountiful health. But you know what? At this point, that honestly, I'm glad you brought that up because that's a toss up for me.
Is that your threshold right there?
That's like flip a coin to me. I don't know.
All right. Well, we'll go slightly behind Alshon Jeffrey. Another guy going 2nd round, 7th pick, Mike Evans. Would you rather have Mike Evans or Jamaal Charles?
I think Mike Evans is going to have a rebound season next year. I think I would much rather have a Mike Evans.
What about Mari Cooper, 2nd round, 9th pick?
I love that pick.
You like him more than Jamaal Charles?
Yes, I do.
What about a Brandon Marshall, back into the 2nd?
That's another toss-up for me. I'm not really too high on Brandon Marshall going into next season.
Right now, I'm pointing the gun at your head. Jamaal Charles or Brandon Marshall?
Don't do this to me. I don't even know, man. I think I honestly think I would have to say Brandon Marshall. I'm not high on him, but he has less of an injury concern to me than Jamaal Charles does, and I just don't want to waste my 2nd round pick.
All right, fair enough. The last one I'm going to ask you. I mean, there's even probably some third rounders that you might be more interested in. Actually, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I would be surprised.
Julian Edelman or Jamaal Charles.
That's another tough one because Tom Brady is more than likely going to be missing those 4 games next season. I don't. That's a tough one. That's really a toss-up for me. I'm leaning.
I think I kind of found your area where you consider Jamaal Charles.
Yeah,
I think it's towards the back end of the second for you.
It's the back end of the second for me. Where he's going right now, average draft position, I don't like him. But if it's like back end of the second round, maybe top of the third round, I'll take him.
I mean, I'll even name off some receivers that are going in the top end of the third round for you. You got Jarvis Landry, Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Cooks.
Nah, I think I'd rather have Jamaal Charles than all 3 of those guys.
Okay, so now we know where your threshold's at.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our next receiver or next running back. We spent a lot of time on him.
Okay.
All right, this is a guy where you love. I think you love this guy, and I don't. Is LeSean McCoy.
Oh, yeah, love some shady McCoy.
See, I got him definitely pegged as a bust. Actually, in one of the articles I wrote, I have him labeled as a bust. You love him. Explain why you love him.
Okay, I love LeSean McCoy because of a couple of reasons. Number one, he, as far as rushing attempts per game, he finished the league. He finished number 8, so he's obviously getting the volume. He finished with nearly 17 attempts a game as far as rushing goes. Did have a little bit of injuries last year. He was averaging over 4 yards a carry. In fact, almost 4.5 yards per carry. He got 895 yards from scrimmage last year. So that's another thing that I love about that. He was averaging per game almost 75 yards a game. He's a guy that I see. He's getting the volume. He's getting the yards per carry. He's getting the yards per game. Touchdown-wise, wasn't spectacular. He only got 3. But that volume, you can't beat it. I think that he's going to have another. The only thing you got to worry about with him is Carlos Williams might cut into his touchdown totals a little bit. He might have a little bit of injuries, but as far as volume goes, I love Shady McCoy.
All right, you brought up some points that actually could go either way.
Mm-hmm.
Here's some reasons why I am not for LeSean McCoy this year. Well, I mean, I'm certainly not doubting his talent. He's one of the most talented backs in the league, obviously. But some of the issues for me is he's kind of suffering through some injuries last year. He's 28 years old. He's got a lot of carries on those tires. He even said if there is an emergence of Carlos Williams, who scored like a touchdown like his first 6 or 7 games last year, maybe they might give him some more carries going into next year to see what they got because he's the younger back. So he's had over, I think it's 1,195 touches since 2012. That's rushes and catches.
Yeah, you're right. That's a good
He
point.
could be closer to done than most people think. Also, they have a pretty rough run schedule next year. Their schedule's a lot tougher to run against. So I think that you could expect a little bit of a down year for him.
Really? Those are all really good points.
He had last year. He had just over 200 carries, under 1,000 yards, only 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. You bring up a lot of good points, but my main reason why I love him, and this is pretty much the only reason why I love him, is you really can't beat that volume. Unless you're an AP or a Le'Veon Bell, you can't really beat that volume.
I mean, at his ADP, it's not a bad ADP especially for McCoy.
That's also where I like him too. I like the value you can get for him.
I got him up on receivers right now. Let me go to running backs. According to Fantasy Football Calculator, once again, if you haven't figured it out, that's what we're using.
Catch the drift, yeah.
Yeah, his ADP he's going at is the back end of the third round, so that's not terrible.
I like him,
But I'm saying, I've been doing a lot of mock drafts at the 12th spot, and he's never been falling to me at that back end of the third round. He's been going a little bit earlier than that.
Yeah, and that's
at the back end of the back end of the third round is another guy that we could probably talk about because I think I'm more of a love, and I think you're more of a neutral on Matt Forte. I'd rather have him there than McCoy.
Really? No, I would definitely rather have a McCoy than a Forte. And the only real reason I have is, if you haven't caught my little trend here, I'm kind of uncertain of these guys going to new teams. I don't really know what we're going to expect from them. It's almost like drafting a rookie to me, because I don't really know what I can expect. Like just last year, I think kind of proves my case, and now this is Chip Kelly we're talking about, but DeMarco Murray in Chip Kelly's system was a fucking train wreck. And I'm just saying that, I'm not saying that's going to happen to these other guys going to different teams, but I'm saying that it could happen, and that's what scares me, is that you could be drafting a bust.
Well, I mean, I am going to be doing an article soon about running backs that switch team through the offseason and how well they do the next season. My prediction is not very well. But
sometimes that's the case.
I think the only other running back I really feel like we need to touch up on before we move on is a Carlos Hyde. Can you name some reasons why you'd love him, some reasons why you'd hate him?
All right, well, reasons why I love Carlos Hyde.
Because we're both neutral on him, but I feel like he's a guy we need to touch on.
Okay. Well, he only played 2 games last year, right?
He got injured very early.
Yeah, very early. I believe it was only 2 games. You have to correct me if I'm wrong. Don't quote me on that. He had 470 yards on the season last year with the limited amount that he did play.
Didn't the majority of that come in the Week 1 game, though?
Yeah, it did. I mean, he had a monster game against Minnesota. I mean, he absolutely crushed them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure San Francisco beat Minnesota. I was like, oh, it looks like Minnesota's not going to do this good this year.
Yeah, it was kind of one of the things people were like, oh, wow, maybe San Francisco is going to be good last year. Obviously, we know what happened there. They weren't good at all. But you can't argue the volume that he's getting. You look at the yards. I mean, 470 in literally 2 or 3 weeks, and then also he had 3 touchdowns in that span too, without playing a lot. He was averaging over 4 yards a carry. I mean, that's a good omen right there. But the reasons that I do hate him, obviously, injury prone from last year. I have a lot of question marks on what's going to happen in that Chip Kelly system. He's a guy that, you're going to have at least one guy in your league that's like he's in love with Chip Kelly, or he's a San Francisco fan, so he's going to want Carlos Hyde. He's a guy I just kind of want to stay away from next year. I like the upside, but I don't know if he's worth the risk.
I think that the reason why I'm a little bit neutral on Carlos Hyde is because, I mean, what do they got going on their offense? They have limited receivers. Their quarterback is in shambles. We don't know who he's going to be. Is it going to be Gabbert? Is it going to be Kaepernick? We don't know.
I actually have a caveat on that one. I read today that there's reports coming out of San Francisco that Gabbert has already won the locker room. There was some unnamed sources that said they would rather have Gabbert at quarterback than Kaepernick.
How would you feel about Gabbert being the starter there?
I mean, I don't like a single element of that team at all. I can't stress that enough. The only player that I think could even be of fantasy relevance in San Francisco this year is Carlos Hyde.
You know what's interesting about Chip Kelly going over to San Francisco?
What's that?
Is as bad as everyone viewed DeMarco Murray last year. Do you know what he finished in our 5th down league?
How much?
He finished, I think, running back 17, and it seemed like he had a terrible year.
Yeah,
I mean if Carlos Hyde can give you RB17, I think that it wouldn't really be a terrible value for where he's going at. He's not going at a terrible value at all. If we're going off of a fantasy football calculator, I'm looking him up right now, and he's going a lot later than a lot of people right now. I think he's going in between the 4th and 5th round, 4.07, 7th pick, 4th round. That's not bad value for a guy that you know is going to be the starter. They brought in literally nobody for competition.
That's true.
But their offense is terrible. That's why he's neutral for me.
Yeah, and the same reason for me. I think I had him as neutral as well.
All right, so we're just gonna want to just jump right into receivers.
Yeah.
We don't really have a lot of disagreements in receivers, guys, but we're gonna talk about some interesting places here. between T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief, who would you rather draft in this year's draft?
Well, I like Dante Moncrief. I think he's great value, but I mean, I think T.Y. Hilton is going to be on an absolute tear next year as long as he stays healthy. I think Andrew Luck is going to come back even better than ever. I think we're going to see vintage Andrew Luck. I think that T.Y. Hilton, he just represents a lot. I mean, this guy, he got over 1,000 yards last year with Andrew Luck being injured for most of the season last year. He was averaging 16.3 yards per reception and nearly 70 yards per game.
Well, my take on this is I actually think that Andrew Luck's going to have a big rebound year after what happened last year. And a big part of having a big rebound year is I think he's going to get big seasons out of T.Y. Hilton and Dante Moncrief. I mean, look at these. Excuse me. Here's some of these stat lines that Hilton has in his career. 2013, he had just over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. And T.Y. Hilton had almost 1,400 yards in 2014, 7 touchdowns. And last year, he had over 1,100 yards, 5 touchdowns, and a down season. I think that he'll give you very similar stats to his 2014 season. I think that's right around where I have him. Probably, maybe not as many yards, probably like 1,200 and like 6 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I think Moncrief, on the other hand, I have him at 1,000 yards, but I have him right around like 8 or 9 touchdowns. I think he'll be the touchdown guy.
Really?
Yes. And where you can get him, it's an absolute steal. Like Hilton, he's going a lot earlier. He's going to like the back end of the third. But Moncrief, he's going a lot later. Like it's criminal how low he's going. He's going like the back end of the 7th round. That's almost criminal.
You think that Dorsett, does he put a wrench in those plans at all?
He'll get some work, but he's going to be like the Moncrief of like his rookie year.
Really?
Yeah, like I don't really. I mean, do they have enough volume to sustain 3 wide receivers? Yes. But I think that they're going to have 2 guys that is going to get most of the action.
Yeah.
I see that. I see Dorsett's still another year.
What, you really think so?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that he's a potential breakout candidate next year. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying you got to watch out for that. That's why I'm kind of concerned about that. I think T.Y. Hilton's obviously going to be that number 1. I think that he'll get volume. I think that Moncrief will get volume, but I think that you got to watch out for Dorsett there. Maybe he even takes his job. Who knows?
Moncrief last year was doing excellent while Andrew Luck was in.
He was, yeah.
It seemed like he was getting a touchdown like every game.
He was, yeah. For a while, he's on my team. He was getting a touchdown a game. He was excellent, and I love the point that you bring up. It's not. It's actually the opposite. I don't dislike Moncrief. I actually love him.
You like Hilton better?
I like Hilton so much better this year. He's going to be an absolute monster this year, I think, as far as fantasy wide receivers go.
All right. I know there's been a lot of polls that have been going on, especially on like Twitter, about which wide receiver would you take out of Michael Floyd, John Brown, or Larry Fitzgerald?
Well, I can start this one off.
Yeah.
I will say, I think a lot of people would pick Fitz alone just off a name brand, but I think the one that I'm looking at next year who's going to be an absolute breakout candidate as long as Carson Palmer stays healthy is Michael Floyd.
I think a lot of people are feeling that right now because Floyd's ADP is definitely rising right now. He's climbing into the fifth round now. Like a lot of my mock drafts, I was getting him in the 6th round, and I had the option of choosing either him or John Brown, and every single time I was taking Floyd.
I think we should edit that out because I don't want these people to know that. I want to get him in my league. I don't want these people to get him.
I'm just saying, like I would even the 5th round. I feel comfortable taking him in the 5th round.
Oh yeah, I would easily spend.
I do think that Michael Floyd is going to be their number 1 receiver this year. He's going to take that step up. He's going to earn that contract. Larry Fitzgerald, he's on his way. He's on his way like towards like the downtrend of his career. I think that last year might have been his last like hoorah.
Yeah, I agree with
John
that.
Brown. although I find him very fast, very talented, I feel like that he is more of a wide receiver to that team. Like I don't see him ever being like that number one receiver on a team. He doesn't really have the size or the consistency. I know Michael Floyd's not a guy that's screaming consistency either, but I feel like he's the one that out of that team could take that next step up.
Yeah, I think that John Brown is a good complementary piece. However, I think you're absolutely right. I think that Michael Floyd is going to be that number one going forward. Fitzgerald's on his last legs, and John Brown, he's a guy that he'll probably he's a nice deep threat, but he's a wide receiver too. He's a complementary piece at best, I think.
Yeah. So you're taking Floyd out of those three then?
Oh yeah, I love Floyd, especially in that fifth round. That's great value.
Back end of the fifth round, early sixth round. I love it. Yeah.
Take me some Michael Floyd.
I mean, I'll take that all day.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, another group of receivers that I didn't really write down here, but I kind of want to touch on briefly. We did talk about a little bit earlier about how Rashad Perriman tore his ACL. That was another group of receivers that I thought, I don't know who it's going to be, but one of these receivers is going to produce for me out of that Baltimore receiving core. Mm-hmm. I don't know who it's going to be. I was leaning towards Perriman being that guy. Obviously, it's not going to be, so now I'm leaning between, you got Kamar Aiken, and you got yourself an old veteran, Steve Smith. I'm honestly I'm not leaning. I'm not expecting too much out of. I'm tempering my expectations for Steve Smith. I really think that Kamar Aiken's going to be that guy over there. He had 900 yards last year.
Yeah, very impressive. I was glad I had him on my fantasy team. He was a good streaming option last year, and I think this year he's just going to build on that success because you got a healthy Joe Flacco coming back. But here's my.
You can get Kamar Aiken in the 12th round.
I love that.
You could probably get him later than that.
Yeah, I know, and because he doesn't have any name brand. But and then where's Steve Smith Sr. going out of curiosity? Because I'll bet he's going way too high.
I'm looking at him right now, and honestly, I can't find him on this list. Maybe I gotta look a little bit higher. Maybe he's just going higher than I would ever expected. I don't really see him.
Yeah. Steve Smith Sr. It's the same.
Oh, right here, he's going 8th round, 6th pick.
I hate that.
The 8th round's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but
I just don't like. I don't think you're going to get anything out of him.
Yeah, well, it's the same thing that we brought up about Fitzgerald. He's got a lot of name value, but he's not the dominant threat that he once was. He's over the hill. Last year was supposed to be his last season, but then you can't hang him up. He's doing a Brett Favre type thing this year. He's over the hill for me. I don't like him. If I can get somebody a better value, I think it would take a miracle for me to grab Steve Smith.
I've been doing a lot of talking about the Ravens wide receiving core, especially with my Twitter buddy Uncle Odds. He actually has his rookie rankings on our website, which is under construction right now, so you can't check it out. But I was talking about him and how some people have Steve Smith pegged as a low-end wide receiver too. Mm-hmm. But I don't even know if he's going to finish in the top 36. Like I really like Kamar Aiken finishing in that top 36, but the Baltimore pass offense last year, I think I could be wrong, but I think they had between Schaub and Flacco 670 attempts. Mm-hmm. So there's someone definitely there. Someone there's definitely going to produce. And I think that guy's going to be Kamar Aiken.
I think you're right. I didn't even know about the Rashard Perriman news until you told me today. But now that you bring that up, yeah, that opens up a whole new can of worms. I think that Kamar Aiken's going to be a great guy. He was a great streaming option, like I said, last year. And that was even when you had fucking Matt Schaub at quarterback. I mean, imagine with Joe Flacco at quarterback. I love that.
Yeah, I'm still interested to see if Joe Flacco can rebound off his torn ACL, because he tore it pretty late last year. I'm trying to see if he can rebound, because I actually have him as a sleeper this year.
Yeah.
I've explained before. I'm not going to get too much into it.
I think he might miss a good portion of training camp, though, this year.
He's a veteran, though. I think he'll be all right.
I think he will, too.
This is a guy. He's not really he's more of a role player. Mm-hmm. But we kind of disagree about how we feel about him. Travis Benjamin, you kind of like him. I'm not too high on him.
I'm more of a neutral. I know you hate him. here's my thing too. And you brought up some good points with him. I know we talked about this earlier, but you were saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that you don't like him because you don't know if he can break into that San Diego receiver situation because you got a guy like Keenan Allen, who actually I kind of want to talk about him just real quickly because if we're talking about everybody here.
We already expressed our love for Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I just want to bring up how insane his volume is because I didn't really understand it until you brought it up. All right, so when you brought it up, Keenan Allen is a guy who obviously got the volume. In what week did he get injured again? I can't remember off the top of my head.
It was like mid-season.
Yeah, it was like mid-season. But at that point, he already had 67 receptions. He was already almost nearly at 800 yards receiving. Obviously, Keenan Allen is the unquestioned number one guy in that San Diego receiver situation. You have a guy, you don't know what Dontrell Emmons is going to do. He's kind of just like a non-factor, honestly. But Travis Benjamin, the most I can see out of him next year, he's kind of an anomaly to me. I think he'll get you that occasional touchdown per, every other game or so. I could see him getting probably 6 or 7 touchdowns next year.
You think he's ready to get that many?
I think so because what's going to happen with him is he's a deep threat. I think that's really where
he had 5 last year with Cleveland.
I think he'll get 7. I think that's even a better situation. You got a guy like Phillip Rivers throwing you the ball.
Well, here's some reasons why I'm not a big fan of Travis Benjamin. Last year, he played for Cleveland, granted, but he had 125 targets as the number one receiver in Cleveland. He had just under 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. Now he signs a contract with San Diego. He's not the number one receiver. He's the number 2. He's the number 2, maybe even the number 3. He's going to beat out Stevie Johnson. There's another guy that's there.
I think he will.
I think he'll beat out Stevie Johnson, but I'm saying he's not going to get 125 targets.
No.
He might get more towards 85 to 90, maybe 100 targets. Mm-hmm. So his stats are going to come down. He got just under 1,000 last year. He might have 800 this year.
Yeah.
Maybe he gets 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, but think about the Keenan Allen's probably going to demand double coverage on some plays. That's going to open him up downfield.
Is it going to open him up or is it going to open Gates up?
That's a good point.
Think about all the guys that can throw the ball over there. They got Keenan Allen, they got Travis Benjamin, Stevie Johnson, they got Danny Woodhead, they got Melvin Gordon, they got Antonio Gates, and they drafted another tight end in the second round kind of early, so that's another guy you got to look out for.
That's true. It's a good point you bring up, but I'm just saying, I'm really excited for this whole receiving core in San Diego next year. I think it's going to be a really exciting, headlined by Keenan Allen, but I do think that Travis Benjamin is actually going to be a nice piece next year. And it's good that you brought it up. He nearly hit 1,000 yards receiving last year. So it's going to be interesting to see where he finishes. Obviously, I don't think he'll get that many yards next year.
Granted, I don't know why I should hate him so much. I don't really see him on any of my teams. But he's not really getting drafted very high.
Yeah.
He's getting drafted in the 9th round.
Yeah, well, and that speaks volumes about where people see him right now. I don't see him getting anywhere close to 1,000 yards. I do see him getting probably 7 touchdowns. I think that his touchdowns will go up because he's got Phillip Rivers throwing the ball. But that's really the only upside I see from him. I'm just saying I don't necessarily hate him.
Really, the only positive that I have for him is he gets an upgrade at quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. You don't got Luke McCown or Johnny Manziel or Austin Davis throwing you the ball. Yeah. So,
well, I don't think that Johnny Manziel's throwing anything these days, except for maybe
hookers and
Xanax bars into his mouth.
Yeah,
his Xanax bar got intercepted by Johnny Manziel's mouth.
He's a bar of Louie like the rest of them.
Really, the last receiver that we really disagree about. I really don't necessarily hate Cobb. I'm more neutral on him, but you kind of like him.
I do like him. I kind of like where he's going right now. It might be a little bit high for a lot of people.
Back end of the 3rd round's not terrible.
I don't think it's terrible, but I do think he's going to get... you think about who's throwing the ball. Aaron Rodgers, but we did already talk about Jordy Nelson, who's obviously going to be the wide receiver 1 coming into this season for Green Bay. My biggest point with Randall Cobb is that he's gonna get the volume. Definitely gonna get the volume.
You definitely don't got to worry about double coverage with him anymore.
No, yeah, definitely not. last year he had 79 receptions for 829 yards. He was averaging 10 yards a carry. Catch. My bad. I'm sorry. We were talking about running backs just a second ago. Averaging 51 yards a game. Those aren't like eye popping, but you're right.
It's eye popping to me, man.
Yeah.
The number one receiver in Green Bay last year did not have 1,000 yards with Aaron Rodgers throwing to him.
Yeah, that is a good point.
He proved it. Like, honestly, I thought he was so good, and then it felt like he just did like a complete 180 on me. Like, it felt like he completely forgot how to play football. It looked like he was lost on his routes. He wasn't getting aggressive with the ball. He wasn't the red zone prowess that he normally is.
Well, and here's the reason.
He proved that he was not a number one receiver to me.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that he's a guy where I think that he really did not benefit from the double coverage. He proved one thing to me last year, and that was that he can never be the guy in Green Bay.
Never.
No, but this is the thing though. I think next year he's going to see a lot less double coverage. I think he will hit 1,000 yards though receiving next year.
All right. Want to know something interesting about where Randall Cobb is going?
All right,
he's going at the back end of the third round. But you know the one thing about him?
What's that?
He is the first number 2 receiver on his team.
Mm-hmm.
He is the first number 2 receiver going off the board in drafts right now.
Yeah, and I think that's easy to see.
Every receiver that's taken in front of him right now is the number 1 receiver on his team. He is the first number 2 receiver to come off the board.
Yeah, but that's understandable.
Put it this way: would you rather have T.Y. Hilton, a Sammy Watkins, Golden Tate, or Jeremy Maclin over Cobb, or is there any, or what?
I think half of those guys I would rather have him. So that's a really interesting thing from where he's going.
Who would you rather have over Cobb? Would you rather have a Golden Tate?
No.
Would you rather have a Sammy Watkins?
Yes.
Would you rather have a Jeremy Maclin?
Maybe.
Or would you rather have a T.Y. Hilton?
I'd rather have T.Y. Hilton.
What about Kelvin Benjamin?
He's kind of an enigma to me going into next year, but
that's the range that he's going in right now.
Yeah, I think I'd probably rather have Randall Cobb than Benjamin, but that's a good point that you brought up. Yeah, if I actually thought about it that way, yeah, there's a couple guys right there that I would rather have than Randall Cobb.
And I mean, I'm really trying to push to. I mean, because I won the league last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to have the last pick in the draft.
Right.
So I've been doing
handicap.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of mock drafts
at the 12th spot.
And every time in that third round, I have this choice to make. Do I want a Randall Cobb? Do I want Matt Forte? Do I want a Jarvis Landry? That's another name I didn't bring up. And a lot of times I'm like, well, I already went back-to-back receivers, so I might as well just get a running back.
Very good point.
He's a guy that's not landing on very many of my teams. That's why I don't really have him as a love.
Yeah, very good points.
All right. In case you didn't hear it earlier, the Fifth Down, we are now on the UNB network. If you want to catch us over on the UNB network, we're at unbtechnetwork.wix.com/fancy is where you can find us, and we give you the hot takes, obviously, as you've been listening. They have all of the other sports. Maybe you're a hockey fan. I know that's ending. Maybe you're a baseball fan like K-Mill over here.
Yeah, breaking into it.
Or maybe you're just a fag and you like tennis or something. I don't know.
Or what NASCAR? I think they're big.
Yeah, no, they are big. They are big on NASCAR too. So that's I know.
So if you're a fag and you like racing, then there you go. Check them out. Yeah, Schropp. Yeah.
So let's go get into our last position. Really, it's just a few guys that we're going to talk about at tight end. I know you love Jordan Reed. I mean, there's a lot to love about him, I will admit.
Yeah, I do.
So go ahead. Go get into it a little bit.
All right, well, Jordan Reed, man. This guy, last year, he had some injury problems, but he nearly had 1,000 yards receiving The real eye-popping stat for me is 11 touchdowns. I love that. You know what? I only have one major concern with him, and that's injuries. If he can stay healthy all season next year, he was averaging nearly 11 yards per catch. I mean, this guy was an absolute fantasy monster. So.
You know, here's my take on Jordan Reed. There is a lot to love about this guy. Great talent. He was a guy I was looking into last year. I was like, wow, this guy could really be something if he just stayed healthy. And he finally put together a mostly healthy season. He was injured for a little bit, but for the most part, he was good, and he was really productive in PPR leagues, and that's mostly what we're about, PPR leagues.
Yeah, I love PPR leagues. I only play PPR.
Granted, if you're playing in a keeper league and you drafted him last year, I would suggest keeping him because his ADP. This is the reason why I'm neutral on him, and I don't love him is because his ADP is a little high for my picking. I don't really like taking tight ends in the third and fourth round.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that either. Especially when you can get some values later.
Especially with his injury history. Yeah. That seems like a pretty price for me. Like, I'd rather just wait an extra round and draft Greg Olsen.
Yeah, that's the thing, too.
Who would you rather have, Jordan Reed or Greg Olsen?
Probably Greg Olsen. He's more durable.
He's tough as nails, man.
Yeah, I do.
And he's pretty consistent.
Yeah, he had some games where he sat out last year for injuries, but I mean, for the most part, though, Greg Olsen was Iron Man.
I don't think Greg Olsen was hurt.
No, I think he sat one game, I believe.
Oh yeah.
You have to check me on that one. I don't remember, but I know he got taken out of one game. I can't remember though.
Yeah, but he's to me he's one of the more consistent.
Oh yeah, no, we're in a total agreement on that. He's a fantasy Iron Man for sure, definitely.
And that's really the only reason why I'm neutral on Jordan Reed because his injury history and where he's going.
Yeah, but you got to love the volume too. 87 receptions last year. I mean, he's getting.
That's what I'm saying. Last year he was great for PPRs.
Oh yeah. He should no doubt if he stays healthy next year, he should be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, I mean, right now you know where he's going right now. Back end of the third, early fourth. That's another guy where if I'm picking at that 12th spot, I got to make a decision. Do I want to take a chance on him, or do I rather just get like a running back or a receiver?
Yeah, and you're thinking the same way I'm thinking about Jamaal Charles. Am I going to waste a pick? You're potentially thinking in the fourth round, if you take Jordan Reed, am I wasting a pick if he gets injured later? So,
and there's a couple of guys that I'd rather have behind, or that are getting drafted later. Like I said, I'd rather have a Greg Olsen and Delaney Walker going in like the 6th or 7th round.
Yeah, I love that. He's actually. I think
Delaney Walker, he led the league in receptions for the tight ends last year.
I know,
and nobody wants to say shit about it. Like to me, he's the guy I'm targeting is Delaney Walker.
He eclipsed 1,000 yards last year.
Yeah.
I
mean, I think the Titans they had the most passing attempts that went towards tight ends. Like even like the backup tight end, the third string tight end was getting receptions.
Yeah, no, and that's the thing too. I love everything that Jordan Reed stands for. But it's like you just mentioned, there's so many better values in the mid to late rounds that I love even better than him.
Another guy that I feel like we should talk about, because we have a slight disagreement about, is Julius Thomas. You kind of like him, I kind of dislike him. Why do you like him?
Well, I won't go off of last year because last year wasn't really.
Well, he missed half of last year with a broken hand.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, it was even. Yeah, so we'll skip over that. Everyone remembers what happened to the injury, but I'm going to reference his years in Denver. I mean, 2 straight years where he had was it 12?
He had 12 touchdowns back-to-back years in Denver.
Yeah, exactly.
And then he came back. I don't know how many touchdowns he got last year, but I know he was injured for most of the year. They started to use him a little bit more in the red zone down the end stretch of the year. So that could be something to look into next year. That's one thing that you could look at as a positive for Julius Thomas. But here's some reasons why I look at him as a negative, and it's based on who's going to get less targets in the red zone next year. Is it going to be Allen Hurns or is it going to be Julius Thomas? Because I feel like A-Rob might be able to keep his. I don't know if he'll get 14 touchdowns again. But
I don't know if he'll get that many touchdowns either. But
I just feel like they're going to run the ball more in the red zone with Chris Ivory there. So maybe like with Allen Hurns and Allen Robinson there, that Julius Thomas is just like an afterthought in the red zone. What do you think?
You see, I don't agree with you on that one because I think that I look at Julius Thomas and I look at what Peyton Manning did to him in Peyton Manning's 2 of his last 3 years in Denver, and he was using Julius Thomas as a mismatch in the red zone, and he really is. He's a great red zone threat.
Are you going to compare Peyton Manning to Blake Bortles in the red zone, though?
Ooh, well, no, I'm not saying that yet, but I am saying that I think Blake Bortles, he obviously had a breakout year last year, showed that he had the stuff to be a potential starting quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if it'll last or whatever, but I am going to say that I think he can grow as a quarterback next year and utilize his tight end and learn. So,
how high do you see Julius Thomas finishing at a tight end?
I think he has the potential to finish top 10. I doubt it.
Even I think he's going to finish top 10. Would you have the guts to say he's going to finish top 5?
I'd say it's a possibility. I'm just saying it all depends on how his quarterback utilizes it.
Give me a definitive answer.
I'm going to say right outside of the top 5.
Right outside the top 5, like 6 or 7?
I'll say 6 or 7, yeah. Okay. I'll say that's a safe answer for me right now.
All right, so...
So if he's a train wreck next year, you're going to rub it in my face.
Well, I mean, no, even I see him as a top 10. A lot of the drafts I've been doing, he hasn't really been falling to me, so that's why
he's too. Here's my thing. He's too much of a size mismatch for a lot of people, and he's just too talented of a guy. I mean, I know he's injury prone. He's proved that. I mean, it took him 2 full seasons. He actually did what happened to Brashard Perryman. 2 years of getting injured. He had back-to-back injuries past his rookie year, and then he finally was able to stay healthy in training camp.
Wasn't he originally a basketball player?
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
I think that's a constant theme with tight ends.
That's a new thing for tight ends, right?
Yeah, it is. Antonio Gates, all those guys, yeah. But you know what? I'm just saying he's too talented to not be that guy.
I mean, like I said, I do think he's going to finish top 10. And I just don't see him on my team.
I don't know. It kind of depends on how our draft goes.
I don't know. I guess just the way I draft, like, I wait so long on tight ends that he's just not on my team.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys that I'm looking at later. I'm saying if
I usually wait until at least like round 10 to think about drafting a tight end. I think that's the reason why I never really get a lot of good like value out of tight end. I guess I always seem to pick the wrong guy.
Yeah,
I know there's like 2014. I picked Zach Ertz. Last year I picked Dwayne Allen. It just didn't work.
It didn't work out.
I got to trade for Olsen.
Yeah.
but the last tight end I really want to talk about is a Coby Fleener. I love him. You're not as big of a fan of his. I'm going to mention some reasons why I love him is because it seems like the New Orleans Saints always have a tight end 1, no matter who it is. Apparently, even last year, Ben Watson was a tight end 1, and he was like 35 years old, and now they're getting a younger, faster, more athletic player to play in a spot. I don't think he's gonna have more production than what Ben Watson did last year, but I do feel like he has that tight end 1 upside to me. You can get him in like the 7th, 8th round. That's not terrible value. I think he could be a top 5 tight end even.
Wow. Well, let me explain to you how not relevant he is in my mind. So, out of all the tight, guess who finished ahead of him? His literally in every category, I think.
Last year?
Yeah. Okay. Guy from Philadelphia, you hate him.
I do hate Zach Ertz.
Yeah, you hate Zach Ertz, and he literally, I think, bested him in nearly every category. 75 receptions, nearly 900 yards receiving. And I know you hate him. To me, it just makes no sense why you like a guy like Coby Fleener.
Well, here's why. He's no longer sharing targets with Dwayne Allen. He's going to be playing for the Saints. Drew Brees loves tight ends.
Fair enough.
And I just feel like he has that potential to get like 800 yards and 10 touchdowns. I don't see him getting 10 touchdowns, but he could.
Wow. See, yeah, I think you think of Coby Fleener the same way I think of Julius Thomas. I think he can do all those things. But my thing is you bring up a great point, and I don't think it gets said enough. If there's anybody that knows how to utilize a tight end, it's Drew Brees. So when I think about that situation, I don't like Coby Fleener as a player. I do like the situation he fell into, though. Do
you feel like he can score touchdowns in New Orleans?
I feel like if Drew Brees is your quarterback, the touchdowns will come. Now he's sharing targets with Brandon Cooks and Willie Snead, but I could see him getting 5 or more.
See, when you're looking at the tight ends that you're looking at in that Coby Fleener range, you're really only thinking these guys are only going to be good if they score a touchdown. Most tight ends are touchdown dependent, and I feel like he's a guy that can get 7 or more touchdowns. I think that's right where I have that cutoff of like where I'm drafting my tight end. Can they get 7 touchdowns? Because you got to think regular season for fantasy football is like 13 weeks. Can they score touchdowns in half of those weeks?
That's true. That's a good point. And for me, I think he will score his share of touchdowns. I just don't think it'll be quite the volume that I'm expecting or that I want from him. I just really don't like Coby Fleener. I don't really have.
You wouldn't draft him at the back end of the 7th?
I may, depending on who else is available. But you were saying, Delaney Walker was going around that same area. I'd rather have me a Delaney Walker.
All right, here's some. I'm gonna mention some people that are going right around him, and we could be like, hey, do you want him or do you want him?
Okay.
So in the 6th round, these are according to the Fantasy Football Calculator. Yeah, I'm sure you guys have gotten that by now. But in the 6th round, would you? I mean, obviously you'd have Delaney Walker before him.
Absolutely.
Would you rather have Travis Kelce or would you rather have Coby Fleener?
Travis Kelce.
Would you rather have Gary Barnidge or Coby Fleener? This is the 7th round. Barnidge is going to the 7th round just like him.
I don't like either of those guys. I'd rather just flip a coin. I think I would rather have Fleener just because
he plays on a better offense. Right?
You got to take the better offense.
Better offense, better quarterback.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer on that one.
I mean, I know we don't really care for Jimmy Graham, so I'm not going to mention him.
Yeah.
We both actually. I like Ladarius Green better than Fleener too.
I do like Ladarius Green better than Fleener.
Is there any other tight ends you want to mention?
No, I think we pretty much covered it.
All right. Before we close out this show, I mean, I think I want to mention. You want to talk about a couple of wide receiver 2s?
Yeah. Let's jump into it.
All right. So, who do you think is going to be that wide receiver 2 in Pittsburgh? Is it going to be Marcus Wheaton, or is it going to be like Darius Hayward-Bay? Is it going to be Sammy Coates? Like, who do you like the most out of those 3?
I think it's going to be Sammy Coates because
really?
There has been complete silence about Wheaton. I don't know if that's a good thing. Sometimes silence is golden, but I think that I'm hearing a lot of good things about Sammy Coates. He's got the speed. Darius Hayward-Bay, he's never lived up to his pedigree from where he was picked in Oakland. I like Sammy Coates in that situation. Wheaton's obviously the favorite in a lot of people's books, but I'm just saying don't be surprised if Sammy Coates breaks in there.
I mean, you got to think that Marcus Wheaton's going to get the first crack at that wide receiver 2 spot over. He's been there the longest.
Right, exactly. He should be able to get the first shot at it. Yeah.
Last year he didn't really do a whole lot, especially when he was the wide receiver. He was supposed to have been the wide receiver 2 for those first 4 weeks when Martavis Bryant was injured. He finished the season with only 44 catches for 749 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he did have a stretch towards the end of the season, right? I think he had like a 200-yard game even.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't just say, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to pay attention to a 200-yard season, and he's on a contract year. Like he's probably not going to be re-signed by Pittsburgh. Let's face it, they're not going to re-sign him.
Yeah, no, they won't.
He's trying to work at another contract with somebody else. I think this year. This is his contract season. This is his 4th year in the league. Last year was career high in yards and touchdowns, but he doesn't really get a whole lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
I could see. I like Sammy Watkins. I'm sorry, Sammy Watkins. I like Sammy Coates based on his ADP. Like you could probably get him at the very last round of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Wheaton's more of like a 9th, 10th round pick. So really, are you gonna just in that middle round? You're just gonna draft some average player? Or are you just gonna wait and draft the guy that has more upside?
Yeah, I like the guy with more upside sometimes.
So that's my take on Wheaton. It's not really a guy I'm targeting. But anyways, the next guy I want to talk about that's a number 2 receiver on his team is how do you feel about Mohamed Sanu? Do you think he's going to do anything?
I sincerely doubt it. He never really got the volume that he should have got in Cincinnati, or that we haven't really seen enough from him. I don't think, but in his years in Cincy, I haven't seen anything that's going to convince me that he's any kind of relevance.
I mean, to me, he kind of seems like a gadget player almost. He kind of seems like a guy that's kind of like a Percy Harvin, like one of those type of players. Like you can use him on like reverses, you can use him on gadget plays.
True. Those are all good points.
Like he's just a guy that he's never topped 1,000 yards in a season before.
Yeah,
and he's only had one. He's really 2000. I think it was 2014 is when Marvin Jones was hurt for like the whole year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a chance when he was a number 2 receiver. You know, his stat line was 56 catches, 790 yards, and 5 touchdowns. But I feel like that Cincinnati's more of a run-based team, so he didn't really have as much of an opportunity. He's going to a more pass-oriented team in Atlanta. Well, at least we perceive him to be that way. You think he gets a little bit more opportunity being the number 2 receiver in Atlanta? I mean, think about the numbers that Roddy White put up.
I think he'll get more of an opportunity because he was usually the number 3, utilizes the number 3 in Cincinnati. But there's been no signs of life, honestly, from him. As far as the fantasy perspective goes, even when he has filled in that number 2 spot, he hasn't really impressed me too much.
I mean, would he be a guy that you would think about taking later in the draft if you're needing like a fifth receiver or something?
In those really late rounds, they're kind of just toss-up picks anyways. I'd rather spend a pick on maybe somebody else's handcuff they didn't quite grab. So if their running back gets injured, I'd take all their production.
According to Fantasy Football Calculator, Mohamed Sanu is an 11th round pick. Here's some of the receivers that he's going by. I want you to tell me whether you'd rather have these guys.
Okay.
Vincent Jackson, Victor Cruz, Corey Coleman, Torrey Smith, or even Kamar Akins at the beginning of the 12th.
I'd love to get Kamar Aiken that late.
What about Torrey Smith? How do you feel about Torrey Smith over Mohamed Sanu?
Yeah, I think out of all those guys you named, I think I'd most likely take the chance on Corey Coleman.
I kind of do like Corey Coleman, and I kind of like Torrey Smith too. Corey Coleman, he's a guy. He's on a terrible football team, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like he's going to get peppered in targets, especially if Josh Gordon's not coming back.
Sounds like he's not.
Yeah. So that's the reason why I'd rather take Coleman over Sanu.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. I think out of all those, I go for the upside. I think Coleman maybe has the most upside.
Here's what Torrey Smith represents to me.
Yeah.
Torrey Smith represents, I'm a number 1 receiver on a terrible team.
I like it.
And that's why he's more of a value over Sanu to me.
Right.
So there's that. I'm not really expecting a whole lot out of Sanu, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm not either. No.
Moving right along, we're almost done here. How do you feel about a rookie? We're going to talk about a couple of rookies coming up here. Sterling Shepard, he's playing for the Giants. Do you think he gets that number 2 position over Victor Cruz?
Admission of you know what, I don't know. Obviously, we know the patellar tendon surgery that Victor Cruz got. It saps a lot of speed out of you. And
he also had that calf injury last year.
I think Victor Cruz's time came and went, and I'll be honest with you, I haven't really researched a whole lot of these rookies in depth a lot. But I will say that, I wouldn't be surprised if Sterling Shepard could step up in that number 2 role.
Well, this is probably something that we're going to touch on definitely in a later show. In a later show, we're going to go over every relevant rookie that every team drafted. That's going to be a highlight show for me, at least. But we're going to have a special guest for that show. But I think Sterling Shepard, he's a guy I could see getting the top 40 this year.
Really?
Yeah. He's more of he could be a fringe 3 for me. I wouldn't have an issue drafting him for where he's going at the back end of the 12th round as a rookie. Just take a chance. We're just taking a shot at the dark anyways. Why not? A 5th receiver.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, you know what? When I look at the back rounds, I don't feel comfortable taking rookies in the front rounds. But in the backgrounds, when I'm looking at guys who are like Mohamed Sanu, Vincent Jackson, I'd rather just take a chance on a rookie and see what happens.
When you take the chance of an upside out of like just some boring veteran.
I always go for upside, and you know that about me. I always go for upside.
I mean, think about this. Outside of Beckham, how many targets are available in that Giant offense that loves to pass and they have a shitty run game?
I mean, yeah.
There's a lot of targets to be had.
The only other one that I can even mention is Dwayne Harris, and that's even like who cares?
Well, even that's what I'm saying. At one point last year, Dwayne Harris and Ruben Randall were usable.
Yeah,
I wouldn't say it like
there were streaming options.
Yeah,
there were streamers.
You just never knew which one really.
You could never predict when they were going to blow up. There were just streaming options. You know, if that was your best option that week, go ahead. Play a shitty defense.
The next rookie is we already touched on Doxson, so we're going to go into Will Fuller. Do you think he can win that number 2 position over there in Houston?
I think it's going to be a little harder for him to break into that position. I think it'll be...
There's a lot of competition over there.
Yeah, a guy that I think a lot of people are sleeping on, Jalen Strong. You know, he's got too much size and too much speed for people to overlook him. And, you know, you already got Cecil Shorts the third in that number 2 spot tentatively right now.
I mean... Jalen Strong, he really showed us his jump ball ability last year in a couple of games. Like, I feel like he could break in there. You feel like he's a little bit raw, but Cecil Shorts is a guy, he's always injured.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the reason why Will Fuller could sneak himself into that number 2 position.
Well, and here's my thing, though. You bring up the rawness. You know, I think that, obviously Jalen Strong's a little less raw because he got drafted the year before Fuller.
You think he's gonna?
I think if Cecil Shorts get injured, I see Cecil. I'm sorry, I can't even say.
You can see Cecil Shorts getting injured.
Yeah, I can see Cecil Shorts getting injured, and I think that Jalen Strong steps up in that role. So I'd take a late round flyer on Jalen Strong. To be honest with you, I can see where you're coming from, but I don't know.
Here's some of the guys that are going around showing Shepard right now. You got Sammy Coates, Kendall Wright, Philip Dorsett, Mike Wallace, Devin Futchis, and Brandon Coleman. Or if you want to wait a little bit longer, you can get yourself a Josh Doxson.
I just love myself bunches of Funches.
Bunches of Funches? I heard that he's taken leaps and bounds from last year.
Last year, a lot of people were saying, don't sleep on this guy. He's got a lot of upside. So that's another...
he's pretty much a duplicate of Kelvin Benjamin, just with not as much talent.
I don't know
if that makes any sense.
No, that does. It makes tons of sense.
How do you feel about obviously Alan Hurns? We have like some type of feelings with him. Like, he could be a guy like he's one to me. Here's what he represents to me. Like, according to Fantasy Football Calculator, he's going in the 5th round, but I've seen him go so much later than that. I've seen him go in like the 7th or 8th round. If I can get Alan Hurns in the 7th or 8th round,
I love that all day.
To me, what that represents is you can potentially get a 1,000-yard receiver in the 7th or 8th round.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I do think he might get less than 1,000. There's that possibility. He's the number 2 receiver on his team, but you have that potential. And especially picking at the 12th spot, I've been seeing a lot of chances to get him in that 7th or 8th round.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that's where you're getting him, that's not bad, right?
Yeah, oh yeah. I love that.
I mean, I think it's more feasible that Alan Hurns can get 10 touchdowns over the fact that Allen Robinson repeats getting 14 touchdowns.
I think you're absolutely right on that one. I completely agree.
Like, to me, I think like the 14 touchdowns is so hard to duplicate, and I feel like
I feel like they'll both get 10. That's my gut feeling. I think they'll both finish.
Hot take.
I think that Jacksonville receiver core. I think that the top 2, Hurns and Robinson. I think they're both going to get 10.
All right. And the last guy we're gonna mention before we end this show is Willie Snead. How do you think Willie Snead's gonna do this year?
I like him, but I hate his name. I don't know why. He sounds like an old Southern billionaire, and I just don't like that.
No, that's Lane Fontaine.
And
I do declare.
That
Willie Snead will get at least 900 yards this year. Because he is the classiest individual on that team.
Bold predictions, my friend.
I do like the value that he could get on that team as a pass-happy team. They love to throw the ball. They get in shootouts. Brandon Cooks is there, but he's a great number 2 option.
Yeah, I think he finished last year with wide receiver 3 numbers, and I think
he had 900 yards last year, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, could you look it up or?
Yeah, let me see. I was just checking it out. While I'm thinking about that, though, last year I had him as my my wide receiver 3 on my team for a little bit, and he was a good streaming option for a good portion of last year. Let's see, where are you, Willie Snead?
Last year in one of my leagues, I had a lot of injuries.
Yeah,
I was rotating between Aiken, Snead, and Deshaun Jackson as my flex.
Yeah, that was a nice play. Okay, so last year he had 69 receptions. For 984 yards, so he almost even hit the 1,000-yard mark. I mean,
do you think he's going to reach that mark this year?
I think it's potential because he didn't break into the fold until I think like week 4 or 5 last year.
Yeah, because at first it was Brandon Coleman.
That's right, it was Brandon Coleman, and then he wasn't doing shit. And you got to understand that over the hill, Marquise Colston was in the fold too.
He was there. Here's where you can get Willie Snead. Mid 10th round, you're getting Willie Snead.
I love that.
I mean, if you're just trying to add some depth that late, like that's great.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
I love that too.
I think it wouldn't be a bad dynasty play either.
Oh yeah, I think he could be a potential breakout candidate coming up.
All right, so that's the last guy we're going to talk about today. Keep in mind that we are going to be getting into our rankings show here in probably next show we're going to talk about the rankings show.
I think that's
going to be really exciting. What we're going to do is we're going to break it down from we're going to do running backs and receivers first. We'll probably get into like the top 24ish, 25.
Yeah, that's a good number.
We'll cover up all the 1s and 2s, and then the next show we'll do quarterbacks and tight ends. We'll do all the starters. And then after that, we'll get into the 3s and 4s. And then I think we'll be ready to talk about some rookies.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. The next 2 weeks, we got a busy schedule. We're going to be doing our ranking show, and then our rookie rankings show, and then we're going to be doing a lot of mock drafts coming up too. So keep that in mind. If you have any fantasy questions, please follow us on Twitter at the Fifth Down FF. That's where you can find us, or you can look up Johnny Slokes, JOHNNY, Slokes, SLOES. And yeah, also look us up on Facebook. We're always taking questions. We want questions. We want feedback. Follow us on the Podbean. Follow us on the SoundCloud. Follow us on
Spreaker, right?
Spreaker.
Yeah,
we have our app there as well that Spreaker made for us on the Google Play.
Yeah. And keep your eyes peeled. This could be a pretty productive week from us. I expect about 2 shows out next week.
Yeah, and then the more you guys review and give us feedback, the better we can improve. So please leave us some comments on Spreaker and podcast or Podbean.
Positive, negative, whatever. Bring it here.
You might be able to find us on iTunes. I don't know. I'm retarded at technology. So.
Yeah, I think we both are.
Keep that in mind, man.
All right, we'll see you guys next week.
We love you, Fifth Downers.
We love you.